There are moments in life that pass unnoticed by the world, yet shake the heavens. No trumpet sounds on earth, no applause from the crowd, no headline in tomorrow's paper. Yet the angels lean forward, watching. For every human soul is a stage where battles greater than empires are fought. And in one moment of quiet decision, you declared where your allegiance lies. Heavenly hosts witnessed your choice. Not because you were mighty, not because you had riches, not because the world crowned you, but because in the silence of your own heart, you said yes to light, when darkness offered its easier hand. That choice matters more than 1,000 victories written in history books, for history will fade, kingdoms crumble, but the soul endures, and what it chooses resounds into eternity. Think of it. All of creation, vast beyond measure, turns its gaze not to the stars or the swirling galaxies, but to the fragile will of one person. You, not the crowd, not the multitude, just one soul weighing the whisper of God against the roar of temptation. And when you bent your will toward truth, the heavenly hosts bore witness. They saw eternity breaking into time through your act of courage. Do not imagine your choice is small. No decision to stand for what is right. No quiet surrender to love, no hidden act of faithfulness is ever lost. Every decision shapes you, chiseling the soul into something that reflects either the face of glory or the mask of despair. And every step toward the good is celebrated in realms we cannot see. The hosts of heaven are not spectators at a distant drama. They are guardians, encouragers, witnesses of a war that rages where it is least seen, within the human heart. And when you stood, trembling but resolute, they knew what it meant. For they have seen the other side. They have seen the darkness that swallows those who drift. They know the stakes. They know the cost. They know what it means when one frail human chooses light. So walk on. Do not think lightly of the choice you have made. If the hosts of heaven witnessed it, it means eternity itself shifted at your decision. The earth may never write your story, but heaven already has. Do you want me to expand this into a longer keynote-style speech around 500+ words, or keep it tight? Every choice of the soul echoes louder in eternity than in the world. Heaven sees what earth ignores. We often move through life under the illusion that the weight of our actions is measured by applause, recognition, or the scale of visible impact. Yet, in truth, the smallest decisions of the heart made in the silence of conscience, unseen by human eyes, carry a resonance that shakes the eternal order. The angels are not moved by the grand displays of human ambition, for they have seen kingdoms rise and fall like waves breaking upon a shore. They have watched empires blaze like meteors across the night sky, only to vanish into dust. What holds their gaze is something infinitely quieter and infinitely greater. A single human soul choosing rightly when no one else is watching. The unseen world is far more attentive to the drama of your heart than the visible one. A thought entertained, a temptation resisted, a word spoken in love rather than cruelty, a choice to forgive instead of retaliate. These may pass without notice on earth, but in heaven they resound like thunder. The eternal registers what the temporal world ignores. Men and women often long for recognition, for the validation of peers, for monuments that declare their greatness. But the reality is that the monument of the soul, carved day by the choices we make, outlasts all marble and bronze. A single whisper of surrender to God weighs more in the scales of eternity than 1,000 cheers of a fleeting crowd. It is a humbling thought that you are never truly alone in your choices. Not in the sense of earthly company, but in the sense of witness. The hosts of heaven, countless in their ranks, look on with awe not because you are mighty, but because you are free. They have seen the power of freedom misused. They have seen creatures once radiant choose ruin over glory. And so, when you, frail and vulnerable, take hold of that same freedom and bend it toward light, it astonishes even the angels. To them, the grandeur of galaxies is nothing compared to the miracle of a heart surrendered to truth. Our world is loud with noise, endlessly measuring importance by numbers, wealth, and the magnitude of spectacle. Yet heaven does not measure as earth does. The quiet resolve of a soul choosing honesty when deceit would profit more, or choosing purity when corruption offers pleasure, or choosing patience when anger would be easier. These are the victories that tilt eternity. They may appear as nothing in the balance of worldly success, but they are everything in the balance of eternal destiny. Each choice becomes a thread woven into the fabric of your being, forming a pattern that heaven beholds with gravity and joy. The tragedy is not that we make small choices, but that we treat them as small. Each decision bends the soul toward light or toward shadow, and though the world may look away, heaven never does. For in that quiet bending lies the secret of eternity, the shaping of a destiny beyond time, the echo of a choice louder than the shouts of nations. The heavenly hosts lean forward, not for crowns or conquests, but for one human heart choosing light over darkness. For ages beyond counting, they have witnessed the rise and fall of kings, the clash of armies, and the grand theaters of history. To them, such spectacles are as fleeting as sparks flying upward from a fire, vanishing before the night has even noticed. What draws their gaze, what causes them to lean with intent and watch with holy wonder, is the fragile yet eternal weight of a single decision made by a soul. Not in the glare of power, not in the noise of triumph, but in the quietness where temptation presses and truth whispers, one heart makes a choice. Crowns are heavy with gold but hollow with time. Conquests carve lines on maps that generations later are erased and redrawn. Thrones topple, monuments crumble, victories that once shook the earth become footnotes in forgotten books. But the choice of a single heart to turn from darkness and to walk into light is no footnote. It is an event that reaches into forever. The angels who have beheld the face of God and have sung his praise since the dawn know the worth of such a moment, for in that instant the eternal enters the fragile, and the soul declares where it will dwell. It is not the grandeur of empires that draws the attention of heaven, but the grandeur of humility, purity, and courage. When a person stands at the crossroads of desire and duty, when shadows promise comfort while truth demands sacrifice, when darkness whispers the easier path and light calls for faith, it is there that the gaze of heaven fixes itself. The unseen hosts, radiant with glory, marvel at the staggering mystery that a creature so frail is given the freedom to choose, and that in exercising it rightly, they reflect a glory not their own but bestowed upon them by their Maker. We often misjudge the scale of importance. We think in terms of applause, recognition, and the noise of approval, but heaven values the unseen, the secret, the costly act of obedience when no one claps, when no one notices. It is in those moments that the heart reveals its true allegiance. The hosts of heaven, standing in their countless number, do not erupt in awe at a general who wins a battle or a ruler who seizes a throne. They have seen such things countless times. What they watch with trembling anticipation is the soul who turns aside from bitterness to forgive, the mind that refuses deceit and clings to truth, the weary one who still lifts their eyes upward rather than surrendering to despair. For the real war is not waged on the battlefields the world can see, but in the secret chambers of human will, and when a heart, unseen by any crowd, decides to walk in light though darkness beckons, that choice reverberates through eternity. The heavenly hosts bear witness not because the world applauds, but because heaven knows the worth of a soul, the immensity of a moment, the eternal weight of choosing light over darkness. No act of faithfulness is hidden. Every quiet yes to truth is celebrated in realms unseen. The world is quick to overlook the small and ordinary, as though significance must come clothed in grandeur to matter, but heaven's gaze does not measure in the same way. A whispered prayer at midnight, a hand extended in kindness when no one else notices, a silent refusal to compromise when temptation presses hard, these are not forgotten. They are written into eternity with a weight greater than the clamor of kings. The smallest act done in faith has a permanence that no earthly monument can rival, for it is not measured by applause but by alignment with eternal truth. Faithfulness often appears fragile, and because it lacks spectacle, the world may count it worthless. But faithfulness is the quiet strength that resists corrosion, a man who chooses honesty in the marketplace when deceit would profit him more, a woman who guards her integrity when no one is watching, a child who prays in simplicity of heart. All these acts seem small. Yet before the eyes of heaven they blaze like stars. Angels who have watched creation unfold know the difference between glitter that fades and glory that endures, and they rejoice when the latter is chosen. We are often deceived by the scale of things. We imagine that only the grand gesture, the heroic sacrifice, the extraordinary deed truly matters. But the truth is that eternity is built upon the bricks of daily faithfulness. Every unspoken surrender to goodness shapes the soul, chiseling it into something fit for glory. Every hidden yes to truth resounds like a bell in the unseen realms. The heavenly hosts are not blind to the ordinary. They see the eternal significance of the seemingly insignificant, and their joy swells at every step that draws a soul nearer to light. The world records victories of power, wealth, and fame. But heaven records victories of faith, love, and perseverance. A patient endurance in suffering, a quiet refusal to give way to bitterness, a steady trust in the face of uncertainty. These things appear invisible to others, but not to those who watch from eternity's vantage point. In their eyes, there is no wasted act of faithfulness, no overlooked decision of righteousness. What is small here is great there. The unseen celebration of heaven is not for the proud or the powerful, but for the faithful. They know that the soul who chooses rightly against the grain of the world bears a cost, and that cost is precious. They know that to stand firm when temptation whispers is to align with the heart of God Himself. And so, every act of fidelity, no matter how small, is echoed in eternal joy. The unseen realms are not silent observers. They are choirs waiting to lift their voices over every victory of truth in the human heart. What goes unnoticed here shakes eternity there, for no act of faithfulness is hidden, and every quiet yes is celebrated beyond sight. The greatest battles are not fought on fields of war, but in the unseen chamber of the human will. Nations may rise with armies, leaders may command legions, and banners may wave triumphantly across blood-soaked lands, yet even these are shadows compared to the conflicts hidden within a single soul. The outward wars of history are visible, noisy, and fleeting, but the inner battles of the heart are silent, weighty, and eternal. When a person stands at the threshold of decision, facing the pull of temptation on one side and the whisper of truth on the other, they stand in the arena where destinies are forged. The clash may not raise dust or stir crowds, but it shakes eternity itself. The battlefield of the will is invisible, and because of this it is easily dismissed. Men imagine that what is unseen must also be unimportant, but this is the great deception. For the will is the compass of the soul, and wherever it bends, the entire life follows. To bend it toward selfishness, deceit, or pride is to let the soul sink into shadow. To bend it toward humility, honesty, and love is to turn the whole being toward light. The hosts of heaven know this truth, and they lean closer not when armies march, but when one human being quietly chooses righteousness over rebellion. There is a weight to these battles that no earthly conflict can match. On the surface it may look small. To forgive when bitterness burns within, to remain faithful when giving up seems easier, to speak truth when lies promise advantage, to choose purity when corruption offers pleasure. All of these decisions seem like whispers against the roar of the world. Yet each whisper carries a force more enduring than the loudest conquest. For wars fought with swords end in dust, but wars fought in the heart shape eternity. These battles are unrelenting, fought day after day in the silence of thoughts, desires, and intentions. No trumpet announces their beginning, and no banner declares their end. The world may never know when you resisted temptation, when you prayed instead of cursing, when you chose patience instead of rage. But these are the moments that define a soul. In every small victory of the will, eternity tilts. And though no human hand records it, heaven does. The human will is both frail and mighty, frail, because it can falter so easily under the weight of desire. Mighty, because when it clings to truth, it can defy the darkness that seeks to consume it. The angels have seen the grandeur of stars and the vastness of galaxies, yet they marvel most at the hidden strength of a soul that refuses to yield to shadow. They know that the true battlefield is not the land beneath armies' feet, but the secret terrain of the human spirit. And in every choice made there, unseen by crowds yet thunderous in eternity, the greatest battles are fought, and the greatest victories won. Your choice is not small. If heaven witnessed it, eternity itself was reshaped by it. We are often deceived into believing that our decisions vanish into the silence of obscurity, that the choices we make in hidden corners leave no mark beyond the present moment. Yet every decision of the will is like a stone cast into the waters of eternity, sending ripples outward far beyond the horizon of time. When you choose rightly, when you bend your heart toward truth instead of lies, toward light instead of shadow, you do more than alter the course of a single day. You participate in a reality that stretches beyond history itself. Heaven does not watch idly, for heaven knows that one human decision carries a weight far greater than all the treasures of the world combined. It is easy to imagine that the grand acts of the powerful shape eternity, that kings and rulers who command nations hold the future in their grasp. Yet their thrones decay, their empires crumble, their monuments erode. What endures is not the echo of their crowns, but the quiet, eternal impact of a soul's surrender to good. The angels themselves lean near, not for the coronation of kings or the parades of armies, but for the single moment when a soul says yes to the will of God and no to the seduction of darkness. They see in that moment the line of eternity bending, the weight of heaven rejoicing, the echo of choice rewriting what forever will be. Every decision plants a seed, and that seed grows into something greater than itself. A choice to love when hatred would be easier plants a tree whose branches stretch into eternity. A choice to forgive when bitterness offers comfort breaks chains not only in this life but in realms unseen. A choice to endure in faith when despair presses heavily is a flame that will burn long after the stars themselves fade. Heaven witnesses these choices not with casual interest but with holy wonder, because they know that eternity shifts on the fulcrum of a single decision. The soul is never small, and therefore its choices can never be small. To dismiss a decision as trivial is to misunderstand the very fabric of existence. Each act of obedience, each refusal of evil, each surrender of self to love and truth mocks the soul forever. And since the soul is eternal, every choice carries eternity within it. Heaven witnesses because heaven understands the magnitude of what is at stake even when the world sees nothing at all. The unseen world has no illusions about the power of choice. Angels and powers know that a soul's alignment either crowns it with glory or burdens it with ruin. So when you choose light, the celebration in heaven is not for something minor or passing. It is because eternity itself has been altered by your will. Nothing is insignificant that heaven beholds, and no choice can be small if it is great enough for the eternal to witness.